Hey, LAN Party Gamers. We've got a bit of a dilemma here, and it's kind of like a us problem. Basically, I've built too many servers, and this is our server that we bring to like DreamHack or events where we're not hosting the internet. So it doesn't do internet DHCP. It doesn't have a Steam cache. Then below that here, we've got our server cart where it does all the above, and it also hosts the games, the Steam cache, the networking is up here. It's got the file share and all the games hosted on Windows. And then, if we want all that but in a smaller size, well, we built a tiny server a couple years ago, but they all basically do the same thing. So I'm thinking, well, if I could fit all of that into this, and as you saw in the LTX vlog, we were able to bring this on the plane, and then when I want to put it on the rack, I just slide it in and mount it on the rails. Well, why don't we just build something that's got the power of all three and the network storage, so we'll do fast SSD-based network storage. We'll virtualize pfSense, we'll virtualize Steam Cache, and for when we do events that we want to do all that. Or if we're running on the rack here, we'll turn off those virtual systems and we'll let those be bare metal, and we'll just slide this into that system. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take apart this old 775 socket Xeon that I've just been using because it worked. We're going to put in, we're going to decommission this little server rack that I just showed you, and as well as this PowerEdge server here, and put them all into here. And we're going to be using some crazy hardware. I've got a Ryzen 3900X, so we're going to have all of those cores and all that power. HyperX was awesome enough to send us 64 gigs of DDR4 for this build, 3200 megahertz. That's going to fill up our ASRock B450M Pro 4 board. And I've got some other parts going in here as well. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to decommission and swap over my parents' server in the tall server rack. We're going to give them this server, this PowerEdge server with the dual power supplies, and that'll make room for everything that's going in here. So let's get to it. So this is the existing server. It's got 4 drives in RAID and then a single drive just for the OS. This is the same one we brought to LTX. So these are going to get replaced with a 2 terabyte by 2 SSD RAID array. And then I'm either going to install the hypervisor on it or maybe put in another SSD for the hypervisor boot up. And then probably another large, like a 5 terabyte for the Steam cache. And we'll see if we can get everything else to fit. I might also replace the power supply with something a little bit more beefier. And let the build begin. Get rid of all these old drives. Alright, here's the old motherboard. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. I also had this dual gigabit LAN NIC here, and we're going to try to get that working in there. I had to modify this other company's bracket to get it to fit, but it works. And I'm going to try to get these teamed so we get 2 gigs on allowing people to transfer from the 4 terabyte RAID array. Alright, here we go. 3900X. With the RAM slots populated and everything taken out of the case, we had to decide on a power supply. So I took out the 400 watt power supply that was in there that only had a 4-pin for the CPU, and I'm putting in this smart Thermaltake 750 watt 80 plus unit here that's got all the connectors we need to get all we can get out of it, and we're not worried about being underpowered now with this much better power supply. All right, so I got that 750 watt power supply in. I've got a low profile cooler. This is actually an FM2 APU cooler. It's got 4 heat pipes, and we took it out and we cleaned it, put new thermal paste on it, and it fit like a glove on this platform here. And we've got a 1050 Ti 4GB overclocked low profile video card from Zotac. We've got the twin gigabit Ethernet card in here. And man, this was a pain to get this rat's nest tucked away underneath the hard drive cages, but that worked out. Here's our 2 terabyte hard drive cages with the 2 terabyte SSDs in there, so those will fit here, and then we'll put 2 other drives here and here, probably a boot drive and the Steam cache. But I've got it plugged in. I've got a DVI plugged into the 1050, and I've got all these cables out of the way. Time to boot up. And that's not a good sign. Okay, so it looks like in this rat's nest we had the reset button and the power button swapped. All right, and here we go. Oh, that's a good sign. All right, the true test will be whether or not there's any output. And do we have lights on the front? We do. That means the light headers are on there correctly. Come on, show me. And there it is. There's our UEFI, so we're rocking. There's our Ryzen 9 3900X running at 3.8 gigahertz and 65 gigs of RAM. Sweet. So it didn't matter that we didn't populate all 4 sticks. So again, big thanks to HyperX for getting us those 2 32 gig sticks there. We're cooking with gas now. Time to populate the drives and get the OS installed. Okay, I for the life of me can't figure out how to get into the RAID array BIOS. I've even tried going as far as getting an old PS2 keyboard to try to get that Control R in there, and nothing I seem to do gets me into the RAID. I'm hopefully by the end of the video I've got this figured out, but just to show you, I've got the BIOS coming up here, furiously tapping. See, no RAID messages on initial startup. If I go down to storage configuration, I'm in ACI mode, so I'm going to change it to RAID. I'm going to hit F10. Yes. And I'm going to just mash Control R, Control R, Control R, Control R. And watch it not boot into the... Nope. Must be missing something. Well, while we're moving servers around, it's time to finally blow them out with all this construction dust. That's all drywall. Well, with the RAID not cooperating on the ASRock motherboard BIOS, I decided, you know what? I had a perfectly good RAID with these 2 hard drives using Windows disk management, so might as well just do it again. So without recreating the wheel, I've got the original operating system for the SDL Blade server in here with all the games installed, all the Windows updates finished, and all the intranet website, etc. TeamSpeak, and I'm just cloning it onto an SSD, and just started this. So hopefully this works, and I can just plug it into the new Ryzen server, and it just works, and then I don't have to recreate the wheel. Fingers crossed. And while we're waiting for that hard drive to clone, I went ahead and fixed up my Office's server here. So we moved the pfSense router here. That used to be in this 1U slot, and moved everything up, and that gave my parents' server room to breathe. So now I can service this and slide it in and out, and then everything is connected how it makes sense. So for instance, this UPS here is connected to the far right side of the 30 amp. This other one's in the middle, this other one here is on the left. And then each server is plugged in top next, next, and bottom into the back of each UPS. And because each of these have 2 power supplies now, which is why we made the change, if one of these power supplies goes down or I need to swap out a battery, it's not a problem because each of these has redundant PSUs. So the right ones are plugged into the right one, the left ones are plugged into the left, and then top, middle, bottom, so I know which plug goes to which server. Alright, so here we're back at the Ryzen server. So again, we've got the two terabyte SSDs. We've got the 256, which is now cloned off of the original hard drive that had all of the services already pre-installed. So hopefully Windows just boots. I haven't booted it up yet. This is the 3 terabyte green drive that will be our redundant Steam cache for the Steam Cache VM, and let's see if it works. And I might have to tell it to boot off of the new SSD. We're gonna find out. Okay, so that 2 gig network card that we showed you earlier just wouldn't receive power. It was totally dead. So I went ahead and upgraded to a 4-port NIC. And once I got the drivers preloaded, we've got all these network adapters. So if in the event we take this to an event, I'm going to bond all 4 of these ports to a single IP. So all of our VMs, no matter which one somebody may accidentally plug this into, you know, the computer's gonna see it as the same adapter. And if you plug all 4 into a switch, you can have 4 simultaneous gigabit uplink and downlink ports. So for people receiving files from the SSD array, or if we're using it as a Steam cache, it won't bottleneck a single gigabit port. And it can spread the load out evenly between the 4. And then this will be used for a WAN port for incoming internet connections, and then it'll disperse it through the 4 LAN ports. So a little bit of an upgrade for free. I had this. I just had to cut this. It was a full height card, and I cut it and bent it, and then put the little slot in there for the screw. So on my parent server, I'm installing Ubuntu so that we can have the LAN cache on a dedicated box with a 5 terabyte drive. Alright, well, while we're in quarantine, it's a perfect time for us to be working on this project. So here we have the system that we built with the new Ryzen processor and the RAM donated by HyperX. We're actually cloning the system that we built into this, the Windows 10 system with all the games and the local website and whatnot for on the road, onto the drive here, and we're actually putting that as a virtual drive on this new system that our user Chemaudio gave us. This is another 24-core system, but it'll expand across 2 CPUs and 80 gigs of RAM. This is going to replace the 2900 or 2950 system that we have for our server capabilities. So Minecraft, Team Fortress, or even pfSense and Steam Cache are all going to be ran on virtual systems within here. So we've got 4 3 terabyte drives in RAID 5, so we can lose a drive for our LAN cache, and then we've got 2 500 gig SSDs in RAID 1 for redundancy there for the boot drive. So this is going to be replacing our pfSense standalone box, and going to be replacing the Steam Cache in our large 2900 system. Then, in the 2900 system, because I'm still keeping it around because it has all the Western Digital drives in it for the RAID array, is Zotac, for this project, has sent us a 1650 OC for a very special thing. So, over here at the rack, remember we moved this 1U server. This is our standalone pfSense router only. So that's all it does, and it's kind of a power hog for just that one thing. So that 2U server with the 24 cores and the 80 gigs of RAM are basically going to do everything that both these servers are doing, except for the file share. So this server, this 1U server, is going away, and in its place we're putting the 2U. And then this is going to get reinstalled, the operating system. I transferred the Windows server key over to that system. We're going to put Windows 10 on this, and with that 1650, I'm going to make a dedicated Steam streaming for our Android TV that we have for Steamcast, as well as your phone or any low power system. So we're going to have dual quad-core Xeons, and I think it's got 24 or 36 gigs of RAM or something like that. And it's also going to keep being the Windows file share for all these 2 terabyte Western Digital Red drives that we have in there, and it's got a pretty good size SSD for the boot drive still. So its roles are changing, although it's staying. We've got my parent server upgraded with 24 gigs of RAM as well, and so that's finished. It's got been running the Office stuff for a little bit now. So all we have to do is wait for the server that we're transferring the files over on to finish, and then we can load this bad boy up and replace that entire 1U server with it. Yes! Well, that's pretty much going to do it for this server upgrade. What you saw just now, where the video card on the old 2000 series PowerEdge, although it would post, I could get into the BIOS, it wouldn't get into any operating system. And I checked many different forums and things like that, and sure enough, it's a known issue. Even getting the card to work into the BIOS doesn't mean anything. So we went ahead and we changed that new 24-core 80 gig server and changed it to a single 1 terabyte drive from my parents' work, and we just ported the Windows over. And then we've got a RAID 10 array with these 3 terabyte drives and a hot spare, so that we can start virtualizing all of their work environment. That way, during this pandemic, if we need to work remotely or even afterwards, we'll be able to just log into a VM just like as if we were here in the office. The next server down is my file server, and I got it back doing its own roles. So it's got 2 quad-core Xeons, so I've got more than enough processing power to do things like Minecraft servers, Call of Duty, and of course the file share. So this has all of those 2 terabyte Western Digital Red drives in RAID 6 in it, just like it did before. So same roles, except instead of running VMs, it's now bare metal, running everything straight off of it. So it's got all that horsepower just for a single Windows installation. Then below that is the server that I was trying to get my parents' office on, and we moved them to the bigger server, so that let this one open. So this one is taking care of all the network roles. So it's got pfSense, so the massive router, as well as our Linux server and our Windows server. If you want to ever do domains or anything, that would be controlled off this box. That way, if we ever have to restart our game server for any reason, Windows updates or the like, our network will still stay up, because that's on Windows Server 2012 R2, running Hyper-V, and then pfSense and Ubuntu server, etc. off of that. So that should never have to be restarted, and everything right now is running actually off a generator, because our solar batteries are getting basically the wiring is being redone to the house. So thankfully we've got this going out to the generator, and today's our Minecraft WAN day, so it's a good test of the new server setup, having as many people as we can hammer the Minecraft server in TeamSpeak, and the internet being up and whatnot. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you're wondering how the Ryzen server went, well, they basically, as well as you can configure, actually the configuration for these servers are clone off of the 2900X. So the 2900X is now our mobile server, so I can take it out. It'll do a pfSense router, as well as a obviously the Windows game services, and an all SSD shared drive, as well as 4 teamed gigabit NICs and a single gigabit WAN NIC off the motherboard. And then obviously the if we have it installed on the mobile rack on wheels, that has its own pfSense server, so I could turn the one on the server off, giving us all of our cores back. And I went ahead and took Steam Cache off of it, because if we're at an event where we're offline, we won't be needing Steam Cache, and if we're online, it'll be on the server rack, which now that I'm not using it in this server, has a 12 terabyte RAID 0 array. I'm not super worried about redundancy on Steam Cache, because it's just for mobile events. So we've got that running, and so people can get their Steam downloads when we're off-site straight from that. And that's bare metal as well. That's my parents' old Xeon 2U servers. So everything on that front is working out great. 64 gigs of RAM, basically a scaled down version of this exact rack in a 2U form factor. So Atlantathon, you're going to see that coming up in October, or we probably will bring that to Comic-Con, assuming Comic-Con happens. We'll see. Make sure you check out our events list on SanDiegoLand.net and subscribe here for more interesting coverage during these crazy times. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.